Hey everybody, Adam Savage here in my cave. Welcome to another edition of Tested VR. Yes, it is spacesuit time. I'm not even sure where to begin to talk about this, except for last summer I got to spend the whole summer designing and building this suit from scratch. I have over a dozen spacesuits in my collection. I've collaborated and built them for already over a couple of decades, but this is the first time I actually added my own design sensibility rather than replicating a suit from history. Its structure is inspired by the current generation of NASA XEMU suits that they are designing and testing for moon inhabitation. But beyond its structure, everything about this comes from me, and that means that I love it like no other suit in my collection, and I'm going to walk you through my favorite parts of it. Now, the XEMU suit is what's called a hard upper torso suit, and unlike the Apollo suits of old, it is not like a shirt and pants. It is a monolithic single-piece suit. Or an anthropomorphic spaceship, as it were. Up until this generation, American astronauts have always had to put on a top and pants. The XEMU suit has a single entry point, and that is this rear. You open the backpack to get in. The Russians have been using this design for decades. I'm really glad that NASA has caught on to just how exciting this form factor is. The second I saw it, I knew I wanted to make one for myself. Now, I use the term hard upper torso. That is this part, everything above the waist, and it is hard. This is fiberglass. The NASA suits have been milled out of aluminum. I believe they hope to use composites for future generations. I used spandex and fiberglass to make this. I started with 4 rings, one for the neck, one for each arm, and one for the waist. And I worked with my own body to get these into a proper orientation so that they fit me. Once I had them in that orientation, I stretched spandex between those rings, painted on a little fiberglass resin, and then I painted on some fiberglass. That gave me this basic structure. Then, once I had that, I added the hardware and the hinges for the door. The door is actually completely removable. This is a feature that made working with this suit incredibly easy. The door closes really nicely. I'm very proud of that. Just like the NASA suit, my suit has bearings in the shoulders and in the forearms, and I was astounded by how flexible that made the suit feel. One of the key aspects of these suits is because it's a hard upper torso and there are bearings in the arm, the angle at which this bearing crosses the rotational apex of the astronaut's shoulder is completely critical. I actually want to show you something about this. I got the geometry wrong at first, and I couldn't move in it. I was sitting there like this with my arms way out. And when I thought about it, I realized I needed to pull the insides of the arms in. So I used a bone saw, made a slice here, almost all the way around, but not completely around on each arm, and I wedged them in. And just this tiny, tiny difference of 3/4 of an inch in that orientation made the suit feel 100% more comfortable. This was like a tiny little window into just how difficult it is to fit hard things like a spacesuit onto our soft, irregular, no two are quite the same human bodies. This is still a problem NASA is continuing to have to solve because we are all so unique in our form factors. Okay, once I had the basic structure, then it was time to add some electronics, and I had a lot of fun. First thing, movie space light. Now, this kind of ring light, which is in every movie spacesuit, is not on any actual real spacesuit because it kind of inhibits your ability to see from the inside. However, nothing makes you look better. I know that some people online can get salty about how unrealistic these ring lights are. You know who doesn't care about that? Every astronaut I showed a picture of this to, they're like, oh, that light looks amazing. I also added some headlights. I won't blind you with these for too long, but they made actually using the suit very easy. And then perhaps, for me, the most important light is this one, the blue strobe. The blue strobe was, well, I started to think to myself, every NASA suit we have seen up till now in history is effectively an exploration suit for extravehicular activity on the International Space Station or for exploring the moon. That's the only planetoid we have been to off of Earth in person. This is a working suit. That's the way I was thinking about it. And if I have like a team of guys or gals on the moon in working suits and I'm the supervisor, I'm going to want to look out the window and see where they are. Well, on a factory floor, strobes of different colors are very specifically one of the ways in which factory floor managers understand where the robots and where the basic machines are on the floor and how they're doing. I thought about this and I thought, oh, maybe a blue strobe, and I put it on here. And the moment I did, the design of the rest of the suit started to crystallize for me. It all stemmed from the sort of working class Virgil Brigman, Ed Harris's Crew from the Abyss type of approach to a spacesuit. I had never considered that before, that it would be this like blue collar suit. And yet as soon as I saw that blue light, I knew exactly what I was working on. For the outer fabric covering, I found this beautiful, very fine pattern nylon ripstop, which hopefully you can kind of catch a glimpse here. I wanted a fabric that didn't look like a normal fabric. A normal, like, 3/8 inch ripstop is a very identifiable fabric. I feel really lucky to have found this. Also, on the NASA XEMUs, on one of their prototypes, there's visible gold fabric on the inside of this liner. And my seamstress, Christine Noble, did a magnificent job replicating exactly that kind of shiny inside. It's one of those details that doesn't really matter from a structural standpoint, but from an aesthetic standpoint, made me so happy. One of the most difficult engineering challenges on this suit, and actually, frankly, one of the most difficult engineering challenges of any spacesuit replication, is the visor. I had these visors blown by a company down in LA, but I was also very clear that I wanted to follow NASA's form factor. The XEMU generation of suits have a double visor, a double bubble, if you will. And maybe you can see it here. There's an outside one and there's an inside one. So I had to have two bubbles blown at about a ½ inch distance, and then I had to cut them so that they sat at exactly the same distance from each other, one race inside the other. This was a real engineering challenge, and Jen Schachter did an incredible job machining this Delrin ring so it could receive these two, and I have it pinned in with just these 4 2mm pins, one at the top, one at the bottom, and one on each side. The other thing that actually makes this suit way easier to put on than any of my other suits is the fact that this visor is removable. It's held on with magnets, and because you can put it on without having to have the visor on, you get rid of this whole claustrophobic moment when you put on a suit and you put the helmet on before you've started up the air filtration. Oh, right, air filtration. Okay, so once I had this suit, I needed to be able to keep the visor from fogging while I was wearing it, and that's where, hear that? That's the air. Now, the air is a pair of computer fans here and here that draw air up from the bottom. There's a HEPA filter in this, so this suit, COVID safe. It blows that air through 2 tubes on each side and comes out of this manifold. And I'm following precisely NASA's engineering of how that air blows, because it blows across the top of the visor and down. NASA figured this out years ago, that when you blow air across a visor and down, it's the most efficient way for it to travel to keep the visor from fogging up. So, more electronic goodness. I kept all the electronics visible in here. I made this big bus bar for one of my main power feeds, but there's actually three independent power systems in here. The fans run on 12 volts. A lot of the lights are running on 5 volts. A couple of things run on 6 volts, and one thing runs on 3 volts. I'm using little step-down transformers like these to do that. Of course, like I said, the rear of this is totally removable. You pull these two pins and this door comes off. So undoing these plugs allows me to separate the two halves of the suit. That also made working on it incredibly easy. Now you're noticing it's sitting on this stand. This is not just for display. This is actually a really, really important part of its function. In order to get in this suit, you can't just climb up and in. I actually have a small set of stairs I built. I climb up and in. I put on the shoulder straps. I don't need waist straps for this one. And then I have the door closed behind me, and I stand up, and this stand allows me to actually get in the suit and then get up off of it, and now I am free and wearing the suit. And you can close the back door. And then I'm gonna get up. There we go. Excellent. Because the entire thing hangs off of my shoulders, I took great pains throughout every part of the construction to keep the suit incredibly light. The outer frame of this is foam PVC held together with rings of plywood and dowels. I was able to keep the overall weight at about 35 pounds, which sounds pretty light for the size and mass of this, and still, it is a very tiring suit to wear for more than about 45 minutes. You feel it for the next couple of days. The boots were actually really amazing. I have spent so much time looking at boots, snowboard boots, snow boots. Back in the 70s, they had snow boots they called moon boots, and those were used for some of the boots in the movie Alien. I could not find what I wanted until I remembered that my friend who grew up in Montreal said that they would go to work in dress shoes, but in order to get through the slushy snow of the Montreal winter, they would wear boot covers. I cannot believe how long it took me to remember the concept of boot covers, because the moment I put boot cover into the search bar, I found these like 10 seconds later. This is the type of research I call Rumpelstiltskin, that until you know the name of the thing, you cannot crack its spell, but the moment you do, you have all the control. These moon boots were literally like the third term that I found, the third thing I found using that search term, and I'm delighted with them. I added a fake tensioning system, which actually mirrors the kind of tensioning system that NASA is working on right now. I used some spray plastic, some spray rubber to do this, to do the blue, which is my homage to the NASA blue of the Apollo boots. And the wearing away of it is actually all part of the weathering to me. And this is actually a buckle that I bought for my Alien suit. So I figure I wanted a little bit of that kind of lineage. The gloves. Okay. One of the most complex parts of any spacesuit are the gloves, because they're the business end for the astronaut. And from a costume perspective, it is absolutely the same. The gloves have to be comfortable. You've got to be able to move your hands in them. And I sent some pictures of some XEMU gloves and some EVA gloves to my glove maker, who's made all my spacesuit gloves up till now. Her name is Linda Guaris, and she's out of Italy. And I didn't know how she was going to solve this problem because the NASA gloves all have this silicone palm and silicone fingers. It looks like she 3D printed some molds and glued these on here, and I'm just so happy with how they look. That feels like a space glove to me. I did not include internal wrist rings that connect up to the arms, even though that's the way the real gloves work, because I didn't need that type of structure going on inside the glove. I just wanted them to hide the wrist rings, and they do. Now, one of the problems that I solved on this suit that I had never attacked before was being able to communicate while in the suit. First of all, as soon as I turn on the ventilation, it's very loud in here and it's very hard for me to hear. Then when I put the visor on, I'm in a sealed container, so hearing people outside is a nightmare. But I found these plug-in noise-canceling earbuds, and I have a microphone right here. This is a $20 microphone. This is like, you know, for people to be able to hear a little better. It's like a low-cost solution. For me, it's an incredible solution for being able to make myself heard from inside the, for being able to hear what's going on outside the suit from inside of it. And then I added another aspect, which is an internal comm with a speaker. 1 2 1 2 1 2 3. There's a little speaker up here, and it's going to, yeah, that is the device complaining in Chinese that I have not given it quite enough amperage. We're just going to hear that every now and then. It's totally fine. But now it's time for me to put on the visor. And before I do that, I'm going to turn on my ventilation. There we go. And you can hear me from out there, and I can hear you from in here. I can't tell you how much that reduces the claustrophobia of wearing a costume this cumbersome. Now we'll put on the gloves, and we will be outfitted for space exploration. Oh, dude, I love wearing this thing. It feels very, like, cozy in here. Oh, yeah. The thing that I love about this project is that we think culturally of the spacesuit as a solved engineering problem. We've all grown up seeing so many different spacesuits, but it is still an active engineering project. NASA and countless brilliant people all over the world are working together and separately to try and make these suits comfortable and safe for astronauts to wear. And by putting this one together and put my own body in it, I don't feel like I'm being part of that solution, but at least I feel like I'm co-engineering along with that solution, and that is really exciting. And as you can see, with this, I can actually reach almost all the way behind me. That is a level of flexibility that actually mirrors the current generation of NASA XEMU suits. The forearm bearings also really help with that kind of movement. Now, the thing about this is, it's 35 pounds hanging off my shoulders, so I figured out a specific resting pose, and it's this. Yeah. So now the waist bearing is sitting on my haunches, and I've taken the load off. I've taken the load off of my shoulders. So this is how, when we filmed with this last summer, I spent a lot of time lying down like this. Oh, right, the weathering. Let's talk about why it's so dirty. One of my favorite things about the moon suits that came back from the Apollo missions is how filthy they are. They tell an incredible story of exploration. Moon dust is a future story that is going to astound all of us, because moon dust, I think, is going to be one of the hardest parts about going to the moon. But I really wanted to make my suit as filthy as it ought to be. And I did this weathering. I thought I was going to do it with acrylics, but I ended up doing it with theatrical powders, specifically a New York soot. I know, she doesn't have enough, not enough amperage. I will fix that at some point. Sorry, I haven't fixed it yet. But I used New York soot, and I used a black soot, so a brown and a black, and then I used a light gray, and that allowed me to really tune the weathering around the suit until it felt like something that really did feel like it was a working class blue collar moon suit. This is not an exploration suit. These are the guys that keep the lunar dust at bay. I ended up calling this the LRMCs, the Lunar Regolith Mitigation Crew suit. That's the one that I'm wearing. Yeah, I think I'm ready to go to space. Someone's got a seat for me, right? All right, I will see you up there.